Great, thanks. Right, I think you can all hear me, yeah? So thanks very much for that introduction. So what we're here today to talk about is really around the area of metabolic health. So according to the World Health Organization, metabolic health is defined by having blood sugar, waist circumference, blood pressure, cholesterol, and triglycerides all within a healthy range. And that's a benchmark that both scientists and doctors agree is really important. But unfortunately, 46% of the adult population are not metabolically healthy, and they have one or more of those risk factors. And this is a concern because, as I'm sure you all know, metabolic health is really strongly linked with non-communicable diseases, and those kill 41 million people a year, and that's responsible for 71% of deaths globally. But fortunately, 80% of those can either be avoided or delayed through lifestyle interventions, and that's really what we're going to be discussing here today. So I'm really pleased to be able to be here and chair this, what will be hopefully a really exciting discussion about how we can blend science and technology to deliver a scalable digital solution to target metabolic health through personalized nutrition and lifestyle management. So first of all, I'll quickly do some introductions, but then we'll move on as quickly as possible to make sure we've got time for questions afterwards. So just to introduce myself, my name's Amelia Jarman. I work for Unilever, which, if you don't know, is a consumer goods company. I work in the foods part of that with big brands like Hellmann's, Knorr, Magnum, Ben & Jerry's. So you're probably wondering what somebody in a food company is here. But really, what I talked about is, I'm within R&D, where I lead our program on nutrition science, really looking at the role of nutrition and diet in health and wellness. So that's why it fits so beautifully here together. And I'm joined on stage by a diverse group of people. So we have Professor James Betts, who co-leads the Centre for Exercise, Nutrition and Metabolic Health at the University of Bath. Zoe Cholliver, who is the Senior Medical Affairs Manager for Dexcom. Rodrigo Jesus, who's the CEO of Salus Optima, a scientific wellness company. Marnie Allen, who's Senior Director for Consumer Healthcare Futures at the Walgreens Boots Alliance, and Michael Hansen, CEO of Swiss Life Network. And each of them will introduce themselves and tell you a bit more about them when they answer one of our questions. So to kick things off, I'm going to turn to you first, James. So in my introduction, I said that we're going to talk about personalized nutrition, and that's a sort of quite a broad term used to describe a whole range of offerings and technology. So I just wondered if you would tell me from your point of view, and particularly in the context of metabolic health, what does personalized nutrition mean for you?
Thank you. I was going to ask if you can all hear me, but I guess so. My name's James Betts. I'm Professor of Metabolic Physiology at the University of Bath and Head of Science and Research with Salus Optima, who you'll hear more about from Rodrigo. This is a great place to start asking the question, what is personalized nutrition? Because I imagine everyone in the room has an idea about what that means. I would argue that most of us maybe have a misunderstanding of that, and certainly it's misrepresented. So despite the title of this session, you'll find I'm going to be quite critical of many of the ways personalized nutrition has been rolled out in the past and unfortunately is still being in some circles. And so really when we think about personalized nutrition, a lot of people believe then that is recognizing that we are all inherently different to one another, and what is the right diet for you is different from what is the right diet for you, is different from what's right for me. And it's easy to sell that idea to people because you tell them that they're unique and special and one size doesn't fit all. Unfortunately, the science doesn't really bear that out. And in fact, we are all much more similar than we are different. 20 odd years ago, the Human Genome Project the big hope from that was that we would have personalized medication, personalized diets, and we would all be able to send off a blood sample and then be told which diet was right for you and which was right for me. When in fact, as I say, we're more similar than we are different, and so personalized nutrition is not about taking a snapshot of you as a person. So I think having the word person in personalized makes you think it's about you. But it's not about who you are. It's about what you do. So for me anyway, and where I see the field going, is to recognize that personalized nutrition is about lifestyle. So what's right for you may be different to what's right for me, but it's not because of who you are, it's because of what you do. If we look at all the other holistic parts of your life, your physical activity and exercise, your sleep patterns, stress levels, and all the parts of the diet fitting together, that is what is going to dictate what you should consume versus what somebody else should consume. So I think as a background, that would be the philosophy, I think, that underpins personalized nutrition. And this is good news, because it means you haven't got to send off a blood sample and have a one-off check to tell you what to eat forever. This requires lifestyle monitoring. And that's not a black box for us where we don't have the answers. In fact, we have wearable technologies nowadays which make it very easy to monitor all these complicated parts of our lives. The difficulty is then bringing that together. That's where we then need the technology to bring together that rich data set to actually inform what you should consume.
Great, thanks. So you mentioned there about how lifestyle is so important, particularly for metabolic health. So can you tell us, like, based on your research, so why do we have such a problem? Why is lack of metabolic health so prevalent when, ultimately what you're saying is it's about eating more healthily, exercising better, sleeping better, which is something that we all know and all are receiving that advice?
Yeah, so if the question is, can I tell you, based on my research, why metabolic health is a problem? The short answer is no. And we can't tell you that based on anybody's research. There was a meeting just a few weeks ago at the Royal Society where all of the world leaders in obesity and metabolic disease got together to discuss what the causes of obesity and metabolic disease are. And there was no consensus. The only consensus, in fact, is that it's not a personal fault. There's no blame to an individual, but is a complicated, multifactorial issue that takes into account social conditions, the biology, and as I've mentioned, lifestyle. So it's very complicated. We don't really know what the causes are of obesity and metabolic disease in every case. But that doesn't mean we don't know the solutions. We know that there are many aspects of a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle. And so don't be told by anybody that we don't know what those things are. There's a lot of messaging out there at the moment, often trying to sell personalized nutrition, telling us that the general health guidelines are incorrect. And that's not true. They're not incorrect. If you follow the health guidelines, it would be good for 99.9% of people. But the issue is actually getting people to follow those guidelines, and that really is where we have the potential for personalization, having guidelines which are tailored to the individual so that they can adopt them and adhere to them.
Brilliant, thank you. And you mentioned there about wearables, which is a great segue into Zoe. So Zoe, welcome, nice to see you. And first of all, congratulations on the recent launch of the Dexcom G7 to the UK market, which I've seen quite a lot of press coverage about, so congratulations on that one. Now, James touched on the value that wearables can bring in terms of helping people live healthier lives. So building on this, I'm wondering if you could tell us a bit more about what you've sort of learned from the products that you have at Dexcom, in particular helping individuals that are suffering from type 1 diabetes, which is obviously a metabolic condition.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much all for this opportunity to speak to you. My name's Zoe. I'm the Medical Affairs Manager for Dexcom. For those of you who don't know, Dexcom is a continuous glucose monitoring device. And what that means in really simple terms is it monitors your glucose levels 24 hours a day, either directly to a phone or to a watch. So for an individual, they can see all the time exactly what's going on with their levels. Why is this important? James just mentioned that when we're looking at personalised nutrition, we're looking at what happens in somebody's life day in, day out. I'm sure you can all agree your life today is not the same as it was yesterday. Your night's sleep last night was not the same as the night before. Your diet yesterday was not the same as today, even if you are a creature of habit like some people are. Now, what this means for people at the moment living with diabetes is that they have visibility of those glucose readings and can make changes accordingly. So for these individuals, often they're on insulin as their therapy, but many in type 2 diabetes, another huge area of metabolic disease, really just need that education. They need to be able to see what impact their diet, their exercise, their stress is having on their day-to-day life and do something about it. So that's kind of where Dexcom came from. And Dexcom has moved on leaps and bounds in terms of the technology, as most technologies and wearables do. You'll see if you look back several years, the devices were a lot bigger. They were really hard to insert. And Dexcom's really listened to people living with diabetes in this example and tried to bring their insights into their technology, making the devices smaller, more wearable, connected to different phones, different watches, so that it can fit into their lifestyle, allowing them to drive those behavioural changes. So that's kind of where Dexcom is and has come from today.
Okay, and just to clarify, just for the purpose of this discussion, so the Dexcom at the moment is a regulated product only available for people with diabetes. Can you just say how people currently access the product?
Yeah, and that's it's a really great question. So at the moment, Dexcom is focusing on people living with type 1 and type 2 diabetes. There is certainly a lot of research outside of the diabetes arena at the moment, looking at health and wellness, and really importantly, looking at diabetes prevention, gestational diabetes, anywhere where glucose has an impact in our lives, which, let's be fair, is every single person within this room and beyond. So there are devices that Dexcom have that are prescribable. So as of August this year, you can get a device called Dexcom One on prescription. But there are also additional features within other devices that come under the higher cost within the NHS. So at the moment it sits within diabetes, but absolutely there is scope in this huge area of health and wellness.
That's great. And obviously, for what we're talking about today, we're really thinking about some of the bigger unlocks that we can get if we move from a sort of reactive to a proactive healthcare system. So really coming away from treatment into prevention. And we know that obviously 5 million, approximately 5 million people in the UK are diabetic. 90% of those are type 2, but probably more relevant for public health is the fact that 13.6 million have at least one of the risk factors to predispose towards that to move to type 2 diabetes and be in that metabolic, not healthy area. So do you think that there's anything that that things like continuous glucose monitors can do to really help address that side of the problem?
Without a doubt, 100% yes. I think you mentioned all of the people living with there's just under 1 million people living with type 2 diabetes in the UK at the moment who are not diagnosed. There's this 13, nearly 14 million people who very likely will get type 2 diabetes at some point in their life. We already live with 1 in 14 people in the UK having diabetes themselves. This is huge. And what we can see within this arena already is the behavioural change that people do when they see what the impact of their diet, their exercise is having on their glucose levels. And I'll just give you a couple of examples of this. We look at people who are pregnant, so we look at gestational diabetes. We look at somebody even with type 2 diabetes in pregnancy, type 1 diabetes in pregnancy. They have to make a change for the health of themselves and their baby. They are really motivated, but you tell that individual to reduce the amount of pasta they eat at their meal. They say, yes, okay, I'll do it. They don't really understand the impact. When you show them on their phone or on their watch that when they eat that pasta, the glucose level goes up and it goes down, and that every time it's high above this level, that is causing them and their baby damage. They make that change immediately. They never eat that bowl of pasta the same size, they cut it down. This is where these wearables, these devices can have such an impact. In diabetes, we've seen this for years and years, but also outside of diabetes as well. And I think, really my main point here is that we've seen the clinical outcomes of people living with diabetes massively changed their HbA1cs, their time in range, their hypoglycemia, hyperglycemia, so highs and lows. We've seen that change in diabetes, but what we've seen more than anything is the change in their quality of life. Allowing people to sleep well at night, allowing people to feel better in themselves. That can happen in diabetes, but it can certainly happen outside as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Moving on, I'd like to introduce what am I talking about? Rodrigo, sorry, I have a complete mental breakdown then, who's the CEO of Salus. So Salus is really probably the company that most people here maybe don't know so well, but it's really the glue that's brought us all together. So it'd be great if you could tell us a little bit about the company and what's really brought you here.
Good afternoon. Great to be here. I'm the CEO of Salus Optimum. My name is Rodrigo Jesus. Salus is a world leader in personalized nutrition, and you just heard about personalized nutrition here. The way we do it, we intervene lifestyle and through digital coaching and behavior change. So we help people to form good habits and quit the ones that are not good for them. We do that with our global partners, CPG, nutrition, and insurance companies. We believe that nutrition is a major part of the problem and it can be a major part of the solution. And it's great to have someone like Zoe talking about wearables as well, because in the past we couldn't have the biofeedback that allows people to visualize their data, and that in itself incites change and people can then form new habits. So to your point, we are a global leader in personalized nutrition. We major on nutrition. We do that through B2B. And we believe that is a major change in terms of the metabolic health for the planet.
Brilliant. And I know, obviously, we'll be working with you as well. So I know that you've got, you have offerings in areas such as healthy aging, women's health, gut health. But obviously today we're talking about metabolic health. So I just wondered what's made you be passionate about that area and get involved in what is quite a busy market in that space?
That's a great question. If we look at the most pressing public health issue of our times is metabolic health. 40% of the worldwide population is metabolically unhealthy. If you look at the US, almost 80% of the population. So it is hard not to look at that and see we need to make a change in terms of lifestyle. We can't allow people to get ill, come through the doors of the NHS. We can't plow in another $25 billion every year into the NHS or the healthcare system in the US. We need to empower people to actually live better lives and to be healthier. So we believe that all the technology we've been implementing over the last few years in metabolic, in health aging, women's health could be applied to metabolic health. And we also have a major on nutrition, as I mentioned before.
Brilliant, thank you. Wishing you great success as we continue in this area. So moving on, you mentioned working with a number of partners, and I know one of those is the Walgreen Boots Alliance, and it's great to have Marnie here today, who is the Director of Consumer Healthcare Future for Walgreens Boots Alliance. And obviously that's a company at the forefront of interacting with consumers with 8 million consumer interactions each day, it says here. So it'd be great to hear your thoughts of what you've heard today and what that means for you in your role, but also for companies such as Walgreens.
Thanks, Amelia. As Amelia said, I'm Marnie Allen. I lead an innovation team within Walgreens Boots Alliance, looking at product, service, and business model innovation. I will talk specifically about the U.S. I think everyone in the room knows Boots very well. I'd be surprised if many of you weren't already in there once today. So Walgreens is a brand you probably know less. Walgreens is the leading pharmacy chain in the U.S. with 9,000 locations. 78% of Americans live within a 5-minute drive of a Walgreens store. So that is a huge amount of reach. We have 100 million loyalty card holders in the US and more than 25 million in the UK. So as we talk about the problem, the widespread nature of metabolic disease within the US population and the UK population, we're a company that is massively focused on improving people's lives through health and well-being. Our mission is to help people live more joyful lives through better health. So as you think about access to consumers and being able to take data through wearables like the Dexcom wearables, through really making people aware of the choices that they could be making that would make them more metabolically healthy. We really believe that a brand like ours has the real opportunity to show up in people's lives in a credible way, but also in a way that really, can enter the average person's life. What James was talking about, we're all not that different. It's about the choices that we make. And people don't make bad choices on purpose. People make bad choices because they don't know that there's a better choice. So for a company like ours that has this broad reach, being able to bring science, like we're talking about, and technology, like Rodrigo was talking about, into the hands of more people to give them access to information that can help them make good choices, that's ultimately a way to be able to commercialize this kind of great advance in health and well-being and make it available to huge numbers of people to try to impact those massive percentages of Americans and British people who are suffering with metabolic disease.
Great, thanks. And I think we've mentioned a couple of times how prevalent the problem is in the US. So, and obviously, unfortunately, getting worse as well. So the predictions are it's only going to continue getting worse. So, currently it's about 88% of the American population, but those figures getting worse, which seems unbelievable. So can you say what role you think that Walgreens could play in helping reverse that trend?
So I think it's a lot about education and access and giving people tools and support to make better choices. I mean, we sell almost any product in health and well-being that you can think of, and if we don't sell it, we could sell it. But products aren't really the only answer. Information, understanding what's going on with you, what the impact is of the choices that you make at each meal or every day, we need that combination of what's going on with me and what could I do about it. And so for a retailer that has this huge access to millions of consumers, to put in their hands the kinds of tools that can better equip them to manage their health, and then also, help curate the kinds of products, because we all consume products every day, right? Like, we're a retailer, that's our business. There's a lot of information that we can provide to consumers that will help them choose better, choose the better foods, choose support for exercise, choose supplements. And that's really a way to advance our offering. Right now we sell everything to everybody. If we could help individuals buy more of the right stuff for them, that's a way that, it helps our business, but it also helps the end user actually, live a healthier, more joyful life at the end.
Great, thank you. And that's a great move on to Michael, who is from Swiss Life Global Network. So welcome and thanks for joining us today. And probably one of the areas that we need to address is how do we incentivize consumers to actually make those healthy choices. So as an insurer, obviously you're looking to help people lead those sort of healthier lives, either through individual policies or company employer ones. So can you share with us what your view is on how the insurance industry can help incentivize individuals to lead a more metabolically healthy life?
Absolutely, yes. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. First of all, I just want to say I'm not CEO of Swiss Life Group, because then I would not be happy with my current paycheck. I am indeed the CEO for the Swiss Life Global Network, which is a network of around 100 insurers and well-being partners around the world. And my main job is actually to inspire these insurance companies and well-being partners to work together and to find out, what's the next trend. And these guys, they all kind of want me to finance part of what they're doing, because it's true. Nutrition has a huge impact, if we do it right, on the insurance industry. There's no doubt that that would be one of the biggest impact if we get it right. So I'll get back to that in a minute. We do want in the insurance industry, at least some of us, we want to change the world, starting with our own industry. The problem we sometimes have is that we are not really trusted by our clients. So I have some ideas that I want to share with you also a little bit later, how we can incentivize, as you mentioned. I noted down a few words. Some of you might have seen it, some of the things that you said before. You ask me now, how can we help? I would actually put more, how can we be helped in the insurance industry? Because we actually need your help to change. today, unfortunately, the way that we price our insurance is not based on the healthiest people and the healthiest companies gets the best price. It's more like if you're a Microsoft, or Google, or Amazon, we want you on our client list, so we give you a better price, even though you're not the best example. And nothing about these three companies. They might be doing a lot for the employees. But what we are doing, or what we should be doing, is more changing from not the names of the companies, but who is actually doing something for their employees' health and well-being. And there we are not yet. I also noted down your different brands. So you say everyone knows Boots. We haven't heard about Salus. I have a lot. But we are very proud of our brands in the insurance company. So Swiss Life, we can sell everything. We're big. We're known. The problem is nobody wants to share the data with us because it might have a consequence for the insurance. Everyone wants to share with these guys, especially Salus and the devices, but nobody wants to share the health data with me because it might have a consequence, and trust me, it will. So how do we change that? We change it only in one way, and that's that you help me find a way to incentivize my clients, which is you and your employees. That was the very long answer, very short question.
It was a very good answer. Is there anything, like you said, you needing the help from us? So in terms of, and you've talked about how we could look at potentially reimbursing healthy food purchases because of that link. But is there anything that we need to do in terms of proving the benefits of that to make that there? Because as we talked about, personalised nutrition's quite new. Is it really proven enough? So, is that what is needed to change the situation?
I think it's a very good idea. If you try and imagine me sitting in this chair being an insurance company and these guys being experts in what they're doing, I could be very confused. Where should I put my money? So any good ideas like reimbursing healthy food, I think that's a very, very good idea. And I know that some of our partners in Asia and in Latin America especially, they are very much into this. I think if you would add something to that, it might be not only reimbursing the healthy food that I'm having as an individual, but if I at the same time can help others also getting access to that food. I think that's the trend currently, that we want to help others as well. If we do something good for ourselves, how can we make that also possible for others? And that's insurance, right? That was how we started 350 years ago. We put some money in the hat in the middle of the table, and if somebody had to go to the doctor, we would take the money. Or if somebody's house burned down, we would take the money. Today we are going away from it a bit. I don't want to share the risk with you and you and you, because you're not really in my community, but I want to share the risk with you and you and you, because we're kind of similar. And that's just not insurance. We are supposed to share the risk with everyone. But that's changing very much. And there again, we need you guys to help us. What's the right way forward to reimburse healthy food, as an example?
Wonderful, thank you. I'm conscious of the fact that we're coming to the end of our time. So what I would like to do is offer it out if we have any questions at all from the audience. Oh.
Hi, I'm Manuel Copas, lecturer in genomics at the University of Westminster. I'm also chief scientist for Cambridge Precision Medicine. Cambridge Precision Medicine. I just wanted to, Professor James Betts mentioned about the fact that genomics kind of oversold a little bit the personalization aspect. You are right. However, I would say that I've worked with genetic markers for nutrition. The problem is there are differences. The problem is that interventions don't do anything based on nutrition markers of genetics. However, I still believe that there is a personalization aspect with genetics, because you have a risk embedded in you that is going to condition your susceptibility to many diseases. And if you use that information in conjunction with nutrition, there is an aspect of personalization which I think is really very important. And I love to combine as well with the metabolics. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't know if a response is required. I think there's certainly common ground between us here, in that you concede that it's oversold and we haven't been given what we were promised from the Human Genome Project. And equally, I would concede that there are certain conditions, certain situations where there's some value. But I think I would maintain my general position that the lifestyle element is where we have the big gains to make, and that it's going to be that the big difference between two people in their requirements is how they're living their lives and not what we can get from a snapshot from them.
Awesome, thank you. Next question. Here we go, right at the front.
Thank you, Jessica. My name's Waka Shah. I'm a clinical director at NHS London. We've got a program coming up shortly, which is called Our Future Health, which is one of the biggest trials in the world, where we're going to test the DNA of 5 million people in the United Kingdom, and we're going to get some amazing prognostic data from that trial. I think it's going to be amazing. What I wanted to know specifically was, how is Marnie and Amelia and Zoe going to be adapting their future business in anticipation for these presumably awesome results?
So I actually just had my own blood drawn last week for the study. I've got a little bruise still on my arm. So I know that from the CEO of Boots on down through the organization, there is huge excitement about the study, the incredibly wide data set that will be produced. I also know from internal conversations, we're not sure yet what we're going to do, but there are a lot of people within our organization thinking about how we can create future solutions based on the results of the study. So we're huge fans. Our CEO also stood up in one of our sort of bi-weekly employee meetings and encouraged every employee of Boots to sign up for the study, which is actually what led me to sign up. So I know there's quite a lot of engagement within our company.
And I think just to add to that, I mean, we're certainly having conversations already. We're very heavily connected with the NHS, within the diabetes field at the moment. I do have a little bit of reservation about what that may reveal in terms of the number of people with further metabolic conditions that we don't know about at the moment. So, I think we're ready for the upscale. We're certainly, wanting to work in partnership with the NHS as we do already. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think from my point of view, again, it's about that building that understanding of particularly, we've used the biobank, the UK biobank data has, revealed some huge insights for us in terms of that link between diet and lifestyle and health conditions, a bit like James talked about. And I think the more that we can build that, then that helps us define what the needs are of communities, of individuals. That then means that we can make sure that we're tailoring the products that best meet that. So, we had a great finding from biobank about, the link between healthy diet and better sleep, for instance, and better mental health. And, that only helps inform us better in terms of which are the main determinants of that we can help provide products, but also advice in that right area.
Thank you. Any more questions? I'm going to go over here.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Dana Saeed. I'm a lifestyle medicine physician, and I'm based in the UAE. And my question is for Zoe. So I mainly work with women with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And in terms of continuous glucose monitoring or a wearable like we were discussing, for people that don't have type 1 or type 2 diabetes and other metabolic conditions that are, of course, highly stressful, there's a lot of anxiety, eating disorders that can occur in PCOS. So would something like continuous 24-hour glucose monitoring be counterproductive in that it increases stress, worsens sleep, worsens that kind of stuff? So I'd love to hear your input on that.
It's a very good question in terms of the potential burden and stress that this may create for certain individuals. We've got some evidence looking at burden reduction. So for most people, you would see it actually, the stress relief that it gives them to be able to know what they're able to do, to empower them to make those educated choices actually helps, all as part of the behavioural change. I think just to be really clear, we do have a lot of work going on in other metabolic conditions. So outside of diabetes, we have a lot of research in, looking at polycystic ovaries, looking at many metabolics. It's not there at the moment, but we are starting to generate that evidence for sure. Yeah. So I'm happy to work with you further.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. Any more? We've got time for a few more questions. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Ajami. I'm a master's student at UCL in digital health. I was wondering what you feel like the role, well, you talked a lot about incentivizing consumers and even incentivizing some of the people that represent companies here. What do you feel like the role of incentivizing suppliers and sort of people in the higher up of the food industry who are actually giving these people the food to be healthier? What do you feel like the role of partnerships with them are for the future of metabolic health? For the whole panel. Do
you want me to? I could jump in first if you want. So I think, as you can see from the diverse group here, partnerships are really important. And this is such a big problem that there isn't going to be a simple one-stop solution that one company can deal with on their own. And it really is working together. But I think, so yes, it is about providing, ensuring that the food products that were provided are as healthy for individuals. But we were talking about it before this panel. It's not. There's no such thing as something that is healthy or unhealthy. It's about how no product is healthy in terms of if you only ate that product. So, for instance, if you took an apple, if all you ate was apples, you wouldn't be healthy. It's the same on the opposite end in terms of unhealthy foods. Obviously, the label is often quite misleading because it's about how we fit that in your lifestyle and your diet. And actually, some sort of indulgent products can also really have a positive benefit in terms of your stress levels, in terms of your mental well-being. And so really what we see as important is the combination of diet, lifestyle, and the occasional treats, but being able to feel good about it because you can see the fact that it's fitted overall into what could be considered a healthy day, for instance. So I can see Rodrigo.
Just to complement that, incentive dictates behavior. So if you need to incentivize people so they form a good habit. So we're working with the world's largest food service company, and the incentive there is that employers give employees the right education piece, like mine was talking about, so they can make the right choices in their daily lives, and they are more productive and they feel better. So it's all this cycle of give them better choices, they make the choices, they get the return, and the employers get the return as well.
I think you're spot on with your comment about the partnerships, because what we see happening in the insurance industry today, as I said before as well, we want to differentiate ourselves from our competitors. We want to sell more insurance. That's basically what we want to do. So if we come across a great startup company or a company who has a great idea, we freaking buy it. And then we integrate it into our own company and it kind of disappears. And the rest of the industry, they don't get the benefit of that great idea. And that really is not the way forward. The way forward is partnerships. And we are not the right ones to front our clients when it comes to health and well-being. That's these guys. That's the health and well-being providers and the ones with the great ideas. So partnerships is by far the best way forward here.
Fantastic, thank you. All right. Contrary to the timings on the slide, we are actually going to be running till 1:15. So we do have time for one more question from the floor, if there is one. Awesome, thank you.
Hello, I'm Fausta. I'm studying biomedical science and I'm working with one of the pharmaceutical companies. So my question is from this side. because there are drugs who affect metabolism of people, what do you think is the role of pharmaceutical companies? Should they invest more money in the research related to that, or there is no role at all and you should take the responsibility? I don't know. This is the question. What's the role of the pharmaceutical companies?
We work with pharmaceutical companies, and I think the new way to do it is digital medicine combined with a physical product. So going beyond the pill. So we know the pill has clinical claims and can help people to achieve certain need states. But what we need to do is how do we weave in lifestyle interventions, biofeedback with the physical product so people have a better result and with less side effects as well.
Yeah, and I think this comes. I was at a recent meeting with as you say, the CEOs from most of the main drug companies, and I think that, as we say, there's a role for each of them. But I think some of this comes to this whole reactive versus proactive. So I think there's a great role for lifestyle interventions that we're talking about, particularly in prevention, and then in the combination of lifestyle and drugs in terms of treatment when it comes to a stage that really, there is no other option. But the more that we can do for prevention, then hopefully there'll be less need for the drugs at the end.
The only thing I would add in this context then is to note that part of this holistic solution, where I'm saying we would bring together nutrition personalized in accordance with sleep, physical activity, stress, everything else, any medications that are being taken would be high up on that list too. So it's all part of the same solution. And then not only can the medication help most effectively with having a healthy diet, but making sure those medications are taken at the right time of day, scheduled at the right stage, whether you're exercising or eating in a certain way, and then everything can be more efficient. So it helps the diet, it helps physical activity, it helps sleep, and it makes the medications work most effectively.
Fantastic, thank you so much. James, earlier you mentioned that actually we're not too dissimilar, all of us. We're all very, very similar, and our similarities are greater than our difference. One thing you did say is that actually how we access information and the information we need and where that information should be, that is the point of difference often. And I just want to call out actually Dexcom, Zoe. I'm a bit of a comms nerd, and I saw some fantastic work that Dexcom did for diabetes awareness, where they had an incredible installation down on the South Bank, the No Pricks Parlour ice cream van, which was raising awareness of the burden of finger prick testing on people with diabetes. And it really stood out to me as a fantastic way to get information out there about how technology can really support people in managing their care and also supporting healthier lifestyles, behaviour management and that kind of thing. So I'm just having a bit of a fangirl moment over here, and I really enjoyed that. I thought it was a really good example of kind of talking about how we access information in different ways and really getting those messages out there. So with that, I will close our session before lunchtime. Thank you so much to, first of all, our panel, so big hand for our panel.